Yep. Um, all right. Today, what I want to do is really dive in on this whole topic about, how are we doing in leading teams in a virtual world? And it is something that I know has been on all of our minds. I think it's probably the leading question people are asking me is, what are you hearing about what everybody's doing? I'll share a couple of those ideas with you today. And what I really wanted to dive in to do is let me run through real quick, Darcy and me. We've had a lot of questions about us working together. And then I'll talk about what is happening in the virtual world, and then we'll go into why all of a sudden somebody said to me the other day, wow, I see your face on LinkedIn all the time. And I'm like, you know what? I've just got this passion right now for, getting back to the heart of why are people working and what's important to them and how do we engage them and how do we keep people, and what is the change for us in a virtual world. So I'll talk about some stats on what has happened with our workforce so that we can anchor it in. Any of you who work with me know that I'm always saying, well, data rules the decision. And so what is the actual data? So we know how big of an issue is this? How many is it reaching? How's it impacting our country, much less your company? Darcy is managing the chat, and so feel free to write anything in there. So just real quick on who we are. A lot of you know both of us, one or the other. Darcy and I have both been in the same space of working with organizations in helping them to grow is essentially what I would say. And Darcy as a strategist, and then me as all things people. I always say my tagline is somebody said to call you Cindy, but I'm not sure why. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me your problem. We'll figure it out. Probably not the best marketing thing. I'm sure Mimi would say from Razor. So, but that is how we connected with one another. And so for today, I'll tell you a little bit about our partnership, but I want to make sure I cover, quick chat guidelines because I think that's always good to know. Type in anything in the chat. I don't have it up. I am not a great talker, multitasker. It amazes me that people can read chat, keep their presentation, keep answering them. So Darcy's going to facilitate with that. On the call, you'll see Nancy, who does all things admin for us, and Riley, who helps with all things that are marketing and career. And then Jane is on the phone, and she handles all things that are marketing and promotion, look and feel, that kind of thing. So thank you all for being here, and ask them any questions that you have. I am great at conversation. So feel free to literally dive in and ask a question. You do not have to put it on chat as far as I'm concerned. I look at interruptions as engagement and fun and conversation. That's why when we started talking about doing this, I was like, I don't really want to do a webinar. I want to do a chat. So feel free to ask any questions. You have better ideas than I do. So, bring it up. Teach me. I'm a student. Let's learn. Introduce yourself in chat. One of the things for us, working in this world of connecting this way is I think it's amazing to go ahead and in chat put in there what you do and who you are. We know almost everybody that's on here. I don't think anybody's here that just is kind of out of the blue. And so we can highly recommend the people that you'll meet in our network. We just so adore the people that we get to work with. So let me just say, great way to make friends and network. And just, we're flat out thrilled that you're here. All right, so Darcy and I serve privately held mid-sized companies in a growth phase. I would add to that, I do a lot of work with not-for-profit, love my park people and health people and ministry relational people. So just a fun thing for us. What we do is we've brought together Darcy's strategic work with my leadership development. And then we've really started looking at, how do we put those things together? Because Darcy will say that, her MBA at Harvard, that, about 20% of strategic plans ever get implemented. And we know that when you really start working on healthy teams and healthy leaders, then all of a sudden that implementation can double and triple that easily. So we've got a lot of industry experience and hiring decisions and all that. So that just kind of gives you a picture of who we are. This is our 3-point plan: winning strategies, empowered teams, and healthy leaders. And each one of these, when done well, means that you're really going to have a growth culture. And that becomes vitally important. I'll have people call and say, can you come work with us on culture? And I'm like, well, my favorite definition of culture is the air around us. What have we created it to be? And so, yes, I can help you with culture, but it's not going to be attack on culture that we're going to do. It's going to be very much, how do we get these things in place so that we create a winning culture where people know how to get done what they want to get done. So Darcy does that by this 4-point plan that she has really developed over the years. That's pretty amazing. And we've had the honor to do this with multiple companies now, and it's incredible to watch. And then we come in with this high performance team, which is the model that I have worked on for years and years and years. And I'll tell you, my passion around high performance teams has so much to do with, I have taken this model, which is, what's our purpose? What are our values and our team vision? Who are our people? Do we know what the leader is called to do? And are they clear with their people? Do I know my impact on defined roles? Then culture activators, these for us are, what are the ways we're going to communicate? They're the proven methods borrowed from the greats on kind of an 8-step process of communicating. And then do we know our supporting systems? And, when I was looking at the names of who's on here, so many of you have worked with me on this, and you'll know that it works across all functions. You can do this down in an organization, you can do it at the top. It works in all types of organizations. It works in not-for-profit, for-profit, volunteer. It is a fabulous diagnostic model. I just got off this morning a 3-hour training thing that I'm working with Woodhouse Spas. And we were looking at, how is it working? And we were using this as our diagnostic tool to help them in the spa industry, which is always fun to learn a different industry. This is how you impact culture. And the most important thing that I have seen over the last year is that this works in hybrid. And for me, hybrid includes all things that are the various ways that we're going about getting work done now, from virtual to COVID at home to a cross mix. I mean, we've really, the title of this was on virtual, but I think we're looking more and more at hybrid. So let me tell you why I'm thinking hybrid is going to be the way that we're going. Some of you may have seen the headlines out there that came from Pew Research in October 2020, that 90% of workers say they do not want to go back to the office full time. So I read that and I was kind of curious, okay, that's a splashy headline. So I went and actually started looking all at Pew's research. And I think everybody's probably familiar with Pew, but they're really the leading, Gallup does a lot of research, but Pew does a real focus on the workplace and what's happening with workers. And so here's the actual statistical numerical look at it. It says, among employed adults who say that for the most part, the responsibilities of their job can be done from home, percentage saying that they blank all or most of the time. So 20% worked at home before the coronavirus, 71% are now working at home, and 54% would want to work from home after the coronavirus outbreak ends. So again, what is it we always used to say at Proctor? Figures don't lie, but liars figure. And so I think what we can definitively say from looking at the research is that definitely people want to have this, flexibility of working at home. The ones who went home, half of those are saying, I would like to continue doing this. All right. Now, I will say that in further reading in the research, it was very interesting because in October of last year, we were thinking that maybe rolling into this year, we would be back at it. You know, everybody would be like kind of facing that decision pretty quickly. I think we're just now all kind of settling into, and it might be here longer than we thought. So I'll be very curious, just from a personal standpoint, of how much we're going to see people wear out working from home, because it's not all it's cracked up to be. And let's look at a couple of statistics around that. Um, so, what are people, why are they struggling to work from home? Because I think that's a big thing as we talk about how do we manage people working from home? What is it that they're actually struggling with?
Can
And
I?
please.
So I love this data. I pulled a Wall Street Journal article, kind of similar. And I love the just, pulling all these different data sources and like trying to find the common. But one of the things that jumped out at me was that before COVID, 32% of people said they would never work from home. 32%. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, right? But like after COVID, that's only 4%. So even my old school companies that said we never do it, we work in lots of different industries. I mean, even there, like it's everywhere. Like it really did switch. Now, never to 5 days is a big continuum. But I do think that was interesting because I guarantee you, if I were to ask 10 of my clients, I did have plenty that were like, yeah, we're flexible 1 or 2 days from home. Maybe it wasn't, 30%, but it certainly was 50. But now it's less than 5% or even are never. So it's everywhere. I mean, it doesn't matter the industry, the company, the size. I mean, this whole thing of working from home is a normal. How you handle it is up to each company and each industry. But I just found that the never was blew my mind. It was like 32-4. Okay, go ahead.
Mhm. Any other comments or questions, thoughts about that?
Cindy, I was just curious, in that study you cited that 54% said they would want to work at home. Was there any deeper dive into, does that mean I want to work from home always 5 days a week? Does that mean I just want flexibility to work from home a couple days a week? Did they take a deeper dive into those nuances?
Yeah, and you can go to Pew and look at the research. It was really interesting, and I'll cover a couple of the things. I'm going to show you some statistics about some different groups in that. But what we're finding the most, and I can't quote the stats off the top of my head, is that people want the flexibility. Like that is going to be the thing that we're going to have to deal with, is that people have gotten used to sweatpants a couple of days a week at minimum, laundry. Who doesn't run and do their laundry now? You're not trying to take paid time off to go like meet the electrician at your house. Pets are happier. I mean, who now that has been home with their pets can even imagine going back to work and leaving them at home all day long? Like that seems cruel now, whereas before that was the norm. So, I just was chatting with somebody I've worked with at Compassion International recently, and what Compassion did. So Compassion's interesting because they're an international organization. I mean, they're immense in size. If you're not familiar with them, they want to abolish all childhood hunger throughout the world. And they just, they do, like, even their US employees get 10 weeks of vacation a year because that's international, what other countries do, fully paid. Can you imagine? And they just cut it down the middle. They just said to people, look, you have a one-time choice to put your position in an at work all day, every day, or an at home all day, every day. If you go home, you get a one-time payout of $2,400 to go against equipment, office furniture, some kind of setup. And if you do at home, you can, register for space at our office to come in and hotel. But they've done their research. They know that what has happened in the past is that all of a sudden people who have hoteling space will all of a sudden kind of camp out at that hotel. They love the flexibility of being able to come and go whenever they want to, but they also love having a desk at work. And so that's one of the ways that they're dealing with it is they're calling the shots up front and saying, you know, here are your options, because they realize what people are really wanting is complete flexibility in doing the work that they're doing. In fact, I talked to a company last week that they crack me up. They have what they call puppies. And the way that that name came about is instead of letting people hotel, you have a standing workspace. Think of a podium with shelves underneath and a locker on it. So kind of a rolling desktop locker. And when you're there, that's where you're working. So you can't come in and sit down and camp out. You can be there as long as you can stand up. And then when you go somewhere, it goes with you that day because you've checked it out. So they literally started nicknaming them their puppies, because everywhere they went, it was like walking their dogs to get to somewhere. And so, but he said, you know, what it did was this thing of, I'm not allowing you full flexibility to work at home and then full flexibility to work here, to where there's no rhythm for anybody. So just some ideas there, you know, that are more workspace. We'll talk in a few minutes more about mental space, management, leadership space, but you know, we're going to see quite a few hybrids, but I do think that what I read, going back, Noelle, to kind of the concept here is nobody's willing to give up their flexibility. And isn't that us as human beings? All right, any other questions? I can give shorter answers than that, but any other questions?
I'll share the article in our follow-up, the Wall Street,
Okay,
and we'll do a link
perfect.
with you, with everybody.
Perfect, perfect. Okay. Let me get back. Okay, so the key of this slide is, you know, what is it that people are struggling with? And if we come in down here, you can read through that, but it's feeling motivated to do their work. And I think if we did an informal poll here, everybody would probably come back around and say, you know, I felt that. I have seen that experience. So interestingly, I didn't cite it here. There's so much information out there right now on this, is that one of the things that we're seeing in the remote work is that when you work on Zoom meetings, you know, the different avenues that we have, we do intense work. We get in there and we do it, or we kind of, you know, like folks are doing today, we sort of like, engage but multitask, you know, that it's just a given. Okay, I need to do a meeting, but I also have 100 things else to do, so I'll put a brain here and a brain there. We know that multitasking doesn't really work. There's too much research out there. If you think it does, just do, I'll challenge you to dive in and call me, because I was shocked when I dove in and checked. Our brain really can't think of two things at once. It can quickly switch gears, but not both things at once. And the other thing that we now know is that when you have a meeting and there's some intensity to it, the way that we recover is in the short, quick check-ins that usually happen passing by somebody's office, or in the downtime in betweens. And when we especially have something that's hard to say, the research is saying that you need about 8 positive interactions with somebody to take away from 1 negative interaction. For those of you who are in a primary relationship, they're saying that's more like 21 to 1. And so this is, you know, when we start talking about feeling motivated at work, the amount of time that we spend just being around other people, whether you're introvert or extrovert. Again, if y'all want the research on this, I can send it. A lot of our motivation for doing work is just human connection. In fact, in a lot of research, they're finding that the time that you spend just in casual conversations with people, not intense, the research has shown that we typically have about 13 of those a day, maybe a checkout person or the person at the dry cleaner or the coffee shop, just those casual interactions, standing with somebody in line. Those spur the brain into a positive place, because you get this relevance of, I'm out there with mankind and I'm interacting with all other human beings. And so when you're at home alone, and again, I really want to specify, it's nothing to do with extrovert, introvert. The motivation is really important. Next one up, of course, is being able to do work without interruptions, having an adequate workspace. That's one of the things that I'm really challenging companies to do is partner with people on, it's been a while. We thought I would only be working at my dining room table for a smidge, and now it's long term. How are we helping people find a space that they actually have a dedicated space? Because this seems to be going on a little bit longer. So just, understanding all of this of what really is going on with people begins to be, a significant piece of understanding what we need to do. So, again, these are just the raw information about the age brackets on this. And there's a crazy thing that has come out of this, and it's a difference in age. People over 50 are responding very differently to this than people under 50. In fact, when you look at it, hang on, let me find. I'm going to skip. Sorry, don't let me throw y'all off. I'm missing a slide for some reason. There it is. I pushed one too far. So age bracket. From the age of 18 to 49, people are saying, and sorry, that shouldn't have a dash there, 49% of them are saying it's been really hard to do work from home. They're missing the connection. If you have an older, I'm 55, so I don't consider myself old, but somebody that's been in the workforce longer, 50 plus, then they're saying, I'm really kind of good with this.
Interesting. That's interesting. Huh.
Yeah. The research is saying that the 50 plus group is not missing some of the what would I say, bureaucracy or drama that a workforce can bring.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then those with kids are really struggling.
Yeah.
I went down a rabbit hole the other day on what's happened to the female workforce. And it's alarming. I mean, it is really, if you as an organization aren't trying to think through how to support the female, those with kids, in how they're getting their work done, that has been a devastation to our workforce. It's really a fascinating kind of thing that's happened. So I'm not going to go into that today, but I do think if you're taking notes, that would be one of the first things that I would say is, at a raw level, how do we meet those, if we go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those basic needs of, food, clothing, shelter, and social connection. And, am I even functioning at a place of self-esteem if I am this exhausted? And if you have single working moms in your organization, I'd really be putting together some ways, how can you all support them? Because to lose the ability to have that diversity in your workforce is tremendous. Okay, so let me pause for just a minute. Any observations, any comments from anybody that you want to throw in at this point? That questions, I do so much research on this. I'm glad to answer any questions I have, but I'd love to hear from you all too. Is this resonating with what y'all are seeing with your workforce?
Yeah, one of the things, Cindy, while you were talking, I was asking people, and a lot of this group is 3 or more days a week at home, virtual. So that was interesting to me. I've got clients that are going back to work, but there's quite a few where that is still 3 to 5 days a week virtual. So I did think that was interesting. And then someone brought up that if you really narrow in on that demographic, it doesn't make, it makes sense. But are we really thinking about those with younger kids, like the generation with younger kids? And are we chatting and checking in and really being cognizant of what their reality is, working from home? So I think that's a really good 80-20 on a demographic that we should probably all hone in on.
Yeah.
We've definitely had this experience within our group. We have largely more experienced parents working in our agency, but we have a few of the younger parents that are definitely struggling more to find the opportunity to have uninterrupted time at home because they're just in a different boat than the rest of us. My kids are completely independent and it has worked very, very well. That is not the case, and it would not have been the case. I saw someone made the same point. I would not have been in the same position, 5 or certainly not 10 years ago. So,
And I do think that's another one that Cindy's talked about before, but 9 to 5 doesn't even make sense anymore. And to just throw out that paradigm. And so how do we think about work? How do we think about work time? How do we think about that as we consider meetings and schedules and everything? I think all of those are on the table now, because of that, the work day is no longer, as Dolly Parton would say.
9 to 5.
We're not working 9 to 5. Yeah.
I had to bring that up.
Mhm.
I had to bring up
Well,
Dolly.
And then, you look at it from, I have become so much more keenly aware of diversity and inclusion this year than ever before. And just, the significance of it. And really, my team will tell you kind of dug in like a banshee on, where have I been blind to that and what impact can I make? When you think about diversity, that if you're already feeling diverse in an organization and then you're struggling through finding your bearing on work, much less balancing out your family as well, that's a whole different level of being able to speak up in and of itself. I mean, you may already feel like, gosh, I'm not sure that I'm equally respected. And then I'm struggling with this. So how do I say anything about that? And we've got to, as leaders, own that conversation. We've got to be able to care enough to go, this is uncomfortable, but how are you handling this? I just read a remarkable article about the true leadership of the future is going to be somebody that may not even be functionally an expert at what they do, but they're going to be an exceptional team leader, able to navigate conversations and lead teams. And the article kind of tongue in cheek said, don't be surprised if your next boss is 24, but they're an expert in team leadership and organizational development and know nothing about your business. And I was like, yeah. I have to think about that one.
You know what? I just had this thought, and I know we got to keep going, but since I do strategy, most of the strategic conversations are not they're not productive. You go like this most of the time, and most of my clients would say this work from home thing I put has increased hours, so they're productive. They're more productive. But what isn't happening, and this is the challenge, is true breakthrough improvement or the strategic change or really wrestling with issues. And that's, I think, the difference between productivity and engagement. And we're going to start seeing that gap if we don't, because I have a lot of my engineers are like, oh, they're fine. And these engineers love to be at home. They don't like to talk to anyone anyway. By the way, I'm an engineer, so I get that. Super productive. But what they aren't doing is those hard issue conversations, and those strategic direction. And, it takes, we go divert, then we convert, this thing that we know happens in strategy, because many of you have been through it before. That's super hard virtually. Cindy and I have hybrid conversations with that. We can kick it off, but it is, I think, almost very, I'm not gonna say impossible, but I want to be in a room having these. So it's that sort of conversation. That's the difference, right? Cindy says between productivity and engagement. Because in strategy, you gotta engage, personally engage in it. So that's I just had that thought. There's going to be very productive companies, but the ones that really figure out this engagement opportunity will be the ones that'll be strategic. Yeah. Good. Okay.
Yeah. And I'll dive in there and say, if you hear one thing and need to click off and go right now, the thing that we have to do is lead to performance, because we're used to leading to behavior. And now we're going to have to really look at what is the performance that I need. And then we're going to have to fill in the bucket with emotional intelligence and empathy and connection with people, because that is, I just read another Wall Street Journal last night article on I actually could pull up the quote. It was really powerful. It talked about that the day of the power leader is gone. The day of the influential leader and aspirational leader is upon us.
Mhm.
And so we must be teaching empathy and the way to connect to people and inspire them to achieve their goals within the realm of the organization's goals, or we will truly miss out on how we're going to build our workforce. So, and it's here because, when you can't watch people and see what they do, then you're a little bit blindfolded and all you can do is measure two results. But if all you're doing is either, I call it the horsewhip or the carrot, if you're used to authoritative leadership where you're like, yay, you did the right behavior, or whip, no, you did the wrong behavior, versus that real influential leadership of, hey, you've said you want to accomplish this. This is the behavior I'm seeing. I want to help coach you through it. Then we've got to build those skills. So I'll talk a bit more about how to do that. Anybody else? Any other comments, observations?
Hard to do. We got a big group, so we'll keep going.
Okay.
Can I say one thing, and
yeah,
maybe as
yeah.
a conversational piece for the end? Is really interesting scenario. I'm interested to hear from some of you who see maybe a virtual environment going forward being permanent for you, kind of how you feel about, or what your thought process is about developing and enhancing your teams and really having that team camaraderie. Because I come from a perspective of, we were already 100% remote pre-COVID. We're 100% remote now. And I always get worried about, because my remote is people all in other states. So how you keep that team dynamic and camaraderie together, where you really not only are not together now, but you're not going to be together when we're through all of this, other than we'll be back to maybe meeting a couple times a year as a group. But I'm just interested in people's thoughts on how tips and things that you do to kind of keep people connected and keep people aspirationally together and moving forward.
Yeah. Love
Just
it.
put it, Joshua, I put it in the chat. Maybe people could add some tips in there and we'll review at the end.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, definitely love that, Josh. And thanks for being my straight man, because I'm gonna throw out some ideas for us to talk about. So, and love that. I mean, Darcy said put it in chat, but I love the conversation. So let me fly through a couple of ideas for us, and then we'll open it up to that conversation.
But that's a really good point. I mean, there have been people, I know this is obviously who've been working remote forever, right?
Long time.
You're
Yeah.
not headquarter. That's so it's not like it's a new norm for everybody. Good.
Yeah, I have most of my career. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, last thing on stats, because you know me, I got to do the science along with the empathic part of it. This, I think, is important for us to understand that 62% of people with a bachelor's degree say that they can do their work at home. Only 23% of those without a four-year college degree can work from home, feel like they can get their work done at home. And when I started researching the stats on the Great Divide, again, it's wherever you stand in the world of, our culture, there does seem to be, well, there's not seems, the numbers are saying that the divide is widening. And so I just thought that this was a really interesting just tidbit to throw in, that at some point we also, with many of our companies, have to look at those who are doing work, manufacturing, that type thing, that they don't have any flexibility. So I just wanted to kind of ground us back to, we're really talking like a third, a quarter of people that this is even an option for, because I do believe that sometimes I can forget to look at the whole picture. All right. So how do we adapt our leadership for a virtual world? So I'm going to say that we go back to the basics, and this is why do people work? And it's a compilation of positive psychology with what we know about why people work, positive environment. How does it feel to work here? You know, we would probably call that culture, but I know whether or not this place is a great place to work. In fact, Darcy and I, and those of us on the phone, Bob Lynch, I know you're here, that have consulted in and out of organizations, you can almost walk in the door and experience a person at the front desk and know, am I walking into a positive environment here? It is very telling, and we need to keep our eye on that. Engagement. People want to know, am I making a difference? Am I a part of something bigger than me? Can I say this is 100% of the folks? I have met the deep introverts that are like, yeah, you know what? I just leave me alone. Let me check the box. I get enough from my family. For the most part, there is a thing in all of us that if I'm going to spend my time committed to this, I want to make a difference. Relationships. Do I have connections and friendships? The studies are showing, and I mean, we all know the old adage that people don't quit companies, they quit bosses. But the research is showing again and again that if I have a best friend at work, I am more likely to stay there over the long haul. And, you know, working remotely, it changes. I mean, you don't just get to bump into somebody. It's like if you've ever moved neighborhoods, those neighbors, you felt like you'd never lose track of them, but you were so used to it being easy to walk out your front door on a Friday afternoon with a beer in the driveway and catch up with everybody, that it's hard to create that relationship long distance. Growth. Are you all showing me a place where what I'm committed to doing and me bring my talents, abilities, and time every day are helping me get to another place and learn new things? We as a people love to learn. I mean, if we're in safety and survival, we don't have on our learning brain. We're trying to survive. But if we're in a stable place, we do. The last one is reward. And I have seen over and over again where people could go somewhere else and make a lot more money, and they stay because of the environment that they're in and the people that they work for. What does eat at people is, am I on equity par with my peers? So this is where if you have people and they find out that somebody else that they consider a peer is making considerable more money than they are, whether they're overpaid or underpaid, it doesn't matter. That's when you see that inequity come into play. So these are proven over and over again. I talk about these constantly. I think that we should be asking ourselves, you know, do I know if I'm doing these things for people?
And,
This,
and
yeah.
Mimi brought up just real quick, you know, there is a group of folks, and I forget which, it's the Gen X or somewhere in the, let's say, call it 20 or 30s, that still want that connection and aren't feeling like it, aren't feeling it. And I put a question in there that we have gotten on a hiring. And this was someone coming in, he's in his late 20s, super like sales guy, super guy. And it totally stumped my client because his question in the interview was, what does lunch look like? What does lunch look like? Because he wanted to know, what's the environment? Yeah, I mean, we're talking virtual, I get that. But even if you're virtual, I know my clients are struggling with onboarding and, you know, new hires. Like, there has got to be a connection with people. Even if we're going to have lunch online together, I'll DoorDash it to you. I mean, what does lunch look like? They still have to feel like somebody cares and wants to have lunch with them. My client, by the way, was literally stumped, and they just kind of said, yeah, I think we lost that one. Because, you know, they don't eat lunch together, you know, and they're just in a place where that's just not part of their culture. But that's that environment. And Cindy's point is we have to figure it out on virtual. You still have to figure it out. And Joshua has a point. I'm sure even in the remote world, he's getting together with his people and having relationships with them. You know, I mean, it's important. I put on here, Simon Sinek has a new book called The Infinite Game, and he talks a lot about humankind, and it is good. So FYI.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. And, you know, here's the big question. Does virtual change these core guidelines? And so I'll circle back to this in a minute, but, you know, if we think about it, I'm not sure that it does. I mean, I our team did a virtual 3-day retreat program this weekend. And, it was really interesting. I mean, there was a great band out of Nashville that played. They had a mixologist that showed how to make unique drinks. The opportunity to just sit and chat, like just open it up to questions of how's everybody doing and connecting. There are a lot of things that are really important. I mean, I've had clients who have hired, just a violinist to play in the background, or there's some great, games like, who is it, Mary, talking about the painting, you get the kit in the mail, you do it together. The breakout clue rooms, I've got a company that does those for people, all virtual. Scavenger hunts in your house are funny, hilarious, kind of, ways to connect.
Anyone with kids, a lot of kids have done that in schools to keep them entertained.
Yeah. Yeah. I have teams that have identified, I tease and call it stupid human tricks, but what are you gifted at doing, and what could you teach us to do on a Thursday night as a team building thing that is part of what you do in life? Like, are you a photographer? Do you want to pop on and teach us photography? I've got a woman that every Friday night bakes bread in her kitchen, and we can all check in, talk about I didn't even know her. I found her online. She's a business coach, and she taught at a college. She's a law degree and a business coach, and she makes bread. Like, she's known throughout the US for her bread making skills. And so she teaches how to make bread, and we all chat about what did we learn in business this week, and you can touch in anytime you want to. So I throw out some of those ideas, but really what we're coming back around to is, this passion that I have around teams and how it fits together here. I mean, if I've got a values-based culture, then can I have people know that they're going to have a positive environment because we're going to call out those strong values. Hey, I saw you do this. I want to reward that because it is part of our value of surprise and shock with great things, or part of our value for always look out for your coworker, or, hey, I didn't see this behavior. So how do we look at our values and see if we can't toggle this and really get it back into the values? Vision. Does everybody know what we're doing together? It's a whole lot more fun to get in a rowboat if we've decided where we're going and we're not facing one another. That won't get you anywhere. Leadership. Is my leader allowing me to grow? Are they opening up the door, paving the way? Do I know what I'm doing? I go back over and over, Lombardi saying, this is a football. Our job is to get this piece of pigskin across that chalk line. Can everybody in your organization say that this is my role and this is what I do, and so that I can interact with people positively?
And this is the place too, virtually, that I've seen my clients struggle with new hires. Are they clear on their role? Are they getting the feedback that they need? Are they feeling connected? Do they really know where to go to for help? I would have you really think about your new hire process. And that is a big opportunity on virtual, because they are. I mean, you got to hire people. And if you're virtual, you're virtual. But how do you do that role clarity and make sure that they have the support that they need and the connection that they need? So we don't all look back on here and say, oh, look, our retention rate for new hires all went down 30% and be surprised, because I feel like that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I'm seeing people, if I'm not connected, then it is just no big deal for me to leave. I mean, we started seeing before COVID even began how many people were ghosting interviews. I just had a conversation actually for a company that I know you're on here, so you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And one of the people that we were hiring was a recruiter, and she was saying how shocked she was that as a recruiter applying for jobs, how many companies ghosted her and didn't show up for her interview that they set with her. I'm appalled. I'm like, oh my gosh, what a gift to know right off the bat that you don't want to work there, because that's what that says to you. Um,
And
so
a strategic assumption we all might need to make is due to virtual, if we're going to keep doing it, that your turnover rate that you're used to may be higher. So you just may need to get used to hiring more people, them staying less. And then just it's an assumption. It's kind of one of those strategic things. If you assume your turnover is the same as it's been in 5 years without virtual, I'd tell you that that's probably not a fair assumption. So those are the things to really kind of question, in this new virtual world, because it is going to stay virtual, whether you're hybrid or not. But what are all those assumptions that you need to really rethink?
yeah,
I have
yeah.
a question about that, Darcy. When you talk about losing employees, do you think that will happen more often in the employees who are new to the group and have never worked in the same room with someone, or, and I'm thinking that that's more likely the case, than perhaps people who are working remotely now, but have had years, months, whatever, some period of time to get to know each other in a same physical environment. Maybe I wonder if that's where I see the stress will be. Yes, there's no connection. Yeah. It's really difficult to make that first connection with a new employee. But we're also and this is going to happen every day. Will happen a little bit more often, won't it?
Yeah. That's why I think we're going to look back. I think that is what it is. I think it is happening, right? I think it is happening, and I think it will continue to happen. And either we figure out different practices, right, to connect to people virtually, or we change our assumption and know that people our turnover for new hires in the first 90 to 60 days is going to be 30% and it used to be 20. I have clients that are now that even are remote, Joshua, that are hiring people in the virtual world that are remote. The leaders are making an assumption that they have to get out of the office more to go to that person. Right. That they are getting out of the office more. They are going down there. They're one-on-one. They're recognizing they're not in Cincinnati and they're virtual. We're going to lose them if we don't go to them. It's just going to happen. Right. And so I think those are all the things about that Cindy was bringing up, that, that environment and role clarity and connection. I feel like we're all going to have to think differently about. That
Right.
wouldn't have had.
Yeah, my goal, I'm going to tell you right now, I hear what Darcy's saying and I know she's right, but I'm fighting. I'm fighting for people to love their jobs, whether it's remote, hybrid, virtual, in the office, I don't care. This is where I get on my stump and I'm like, one of the greatest things we do is get to work. We should love the work of our hands and what we're doing. And as leaders, we should do all we can to give people that experience. And so, we need to change. We need to connect more. We need to go out of our way to listen, to empathize, to call up and just chit chat, which for a lot of us, I find chit chatting to be annoying sometimes. If you saw my Berkman, shut up, Bob Lynch, I see you laughing at me. But, this is what this new day of leadership is going to take, is knowing that we put in those 8 chips with somebody and that they feel it and they feel cared for. So I'm not giving up. This is why I'm on this crusade about teams, because it doesn't have to be just us as leaders. If we go back to, if what we can do is create this and come down here, high performance teams, I want to be able to tell my friends and family about how I contribute to my work life. I want to know that I got all of these pieces in the work that I do that lead me to want to stay at this company for a long time, and know that I can go to my team members and encourage them and they can encourage me. And that at the end of the day, that I'm working for a company that's inspiring me and motivating me, and they're not measuring and managing me. That's a function of it, but that should not be how we're looking at our employees. We should be looking at it as, how am I coaching them to be better? how am I creating teams where I'm not the parent figure of having to go and call out somebody's poor behavior, that the whole team is empowered to do it, that we're encouraging, we're removing obstacles, we're giving people opportunity, we're constantly vision casting and filling up that vision bucket, and that the connection comes because we just freaking like working together. And if you have people on your team that you don't really like, then that's a time to rethink. There's another environment for them. I mean, we've got to challenge ourselves to do that hard work of hiring. Reach out to us. I will share with you all of my hiring work for free. I'll give you the script, I'll give you the process, all of it. Anybody that wants it, I'll give it to you. I'll talk it through with you, because it starts with that hiring and onboarding that Darcy was talking about. But then we've got to be able to do these. So, all right, I'm going to turn it back to the group. I'm going to just share a couple of things, and then I have plenty of time to stay over, but I always want to end on time. And then I want to get back to Joshua's question on, what are some of the things that y'all are seeing? I'm going to do 2 more webinars on this. I'm going to do this first one on, how do you build that team, and how do you really look at having 3 key teams within your organization to meet the needs of growth and strategy, and how the operation is doing it. And then I'm going to share with you all what I do for healthy leaders. How do I coach a high performance leader? And so those are dates on that. We'll be posting those. I'm just going to hang in, because I don't want COVID to take away the joy that we have for working. And I really don't want companies to think that people coming back full time is necessarily the only way to get them performing and working. And then save the date. I am going to do, very nominal price, but I'm going to do a 5-day challenge in March. I'm going to spend an hour a day with you guys if y'all want to sign on. And honestly, the price tag on this is just to get people to go, I have paid, so I ought to be there, because I know how I am unless I make a commitment to something. But I'm going to take people through. We're going to do an hour a day, and I'm going to give you the curriculum, and I'm going to be live with you all on Zoom. And we're going to go through, how do you set up each one of these? How do you make sure your values are hitting the organization and your vision? And what's that role of leader? So this is training that I do for companies ongoing. And I'm going to roll y'all through to where you get a lot more meat than today in that. And then the last thing before I want to make sure that we're just sharing ideas with everybody, and I'm going to be as quiet as I can, because as y'all can see, I could talk about this for hours. But Darcy and I are here to serve. I think y'all have seen that with, COVID started, and we both just kind of dove in with, how do we help? So if you need any of these things, for us, the passion for us is, we want to serve you guys as business leaders. We want to develop leaders that care for people. We want to make sure that, 80% of companies are in this range of business that we're all in. And so how are we supporting that work? And that's our heartbeat on it. So, okay, so let's go back. You feel free to share anything you want to. Ideas of connecting people, because I do think that that's a big one. Or ask and answer your own question if you want to. Anybody?
Is Adam still on here? He might have dropped off. I don't know. Is Adam still on here? Because Adam had a great idea. He was talking about it.
I'm still here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because Adam brought up the breakout groups. You want to just chat about that? Virtual events are hard, but when you do breakout groups, I found them I was in them and I thought the breakouts worked really well. Adam, do you want to chat about that for 2 seconds?
Yeah, so we did the happy hour events, and then just the team luncheons. Some feedback we got from the first one, because we did it just as a big group, and the feedback was, oh, well, what about the side conversations and getting to talk to my bestie and friends like that. So then we did a round robin where we put everybody in the breakout groups. Of course, it can get awkward, because there is that tension where, unfortunately, not everybody gets along at the organization. So you might have some breakout rooms where you're in there with someone you're not the most fond of. But again, it did give everybody a chance to have those one-to-one or 2. We did a little small, I think we did 3 groups of 3, and we just rotated everybody, so everybody can still at least talk to everybody in the organization. But again, we're a smaller organization at Cincinnati Works. We're not huge with thousands of employees also. So.
Joshua and I are on a virtual executive roundtable, and I think the best time of that meeting is when I'm in a breakout room with Joshua, because he's the smartest person. But seriously, we love our breakouts. I mean, the breakouts, the virtual's fine, but the breakouts are critical. Agree? Yeah,
Agree.
That's really good. I like 2 or 3 people. Keep them small.
Yeah, Riley, you were telling me, I missed it Friday night, but they were teaching about level 1 through 3 connecting, sharing.
Yeah. So what they do is they say there are different levels of a discussion. So your first level is really casual and like, oh, hi, how are you? Yes, the weather's great here too. Oh, what's it like outside your window, especially if you're in different locations. And then they talked about 3 where it's a little more detail. You combine a little more personal for a level 3. And level 5 is really going deep with things in those big time topics and then rotating through that as a group. So what I saw happen is they had a breakout group. Everybody's supposed to go to level 1 and there's a certain topic. And the topic could even be like, how did you get your name? You know, or like table topics. I don't know if anybody's seen that game. That could be one of them. You could throw out, you know, kind of more harmless questions like that. And then each round got a little bit deeper. So it was a fascinating way to do it.
By the time y'all hit level 3, did you feel more connected to people?
Yes, because you really got the depth of who people were. And this was a short amount of time. It was probably max 2 minutes for each person talking about a topic. So
Speed dating.
I've not done that in
never
years,
done
but
it.
yes, I would say that.
And you did it with the same group of people?
No, there were different groups.
Oh,
So
okay.
you were starting cold with a different group. So think of it as 3 different breakouts. So your breakout 1, where you didn't go as deep on the topic, was not the same as a level 5. So you really had to kind of pull within yourself to make that conversation happen. And it happened pretty naturally, I think, for people.
That's
Yeah.
really
And also there's a lot of gamification that you can start doing in your Zoom meetings, you know, whether it's, you know, doing a buzzer and everybody, you know, downloads a certain app. And when you do the buzzer and kind of buzz in, or if you have a game that's actually done, or even spinners, you know, like
How about
spinners for
these?
topics.
How about these?
Or those, yes. Those are a nice way that the group that we've seen work is they'll ask questions, or you can really show your emotions through the emojis.
Mhm.
And Stover, Adam, I think he's still on here. Stover had one. Oh, Amy's on here too. They had one when we did it. It was a squirrel. That was one squirrel that you couldn't go chase the squirrel. And there on the other side, it said, say only I statements versus they, you know? And I could see that on here, right? A squirrel for those that go chase squirrels, and the I statements that stare at you. But these work. I mean, listen, it's not ideal, but you know, we got to be a little creative here.
Yeah. We literally glued these on for a team.
Yeah.
So that's an idea too. I mean, I have found that mailing some boxes, some interactive boxes when you're working with teams, getting something in the mail these days is one of the most exciting things on the planet. Can I just tell you? I know, look, there's a whole box of this course we did this weekend, and we have
Think about this. Think about if you have one of your meetings and they get something in the mail, you know, that everyone wears, a little razor hat, you know? I mean, those are all, that's like easy personal engagement. I care about you. You know, who doesn't want a door hanger? I mean, who doesn't want that? But there's a lot of good stuff. I mean, these are just things that we're showing to make it fun, personal, create an environment that you really can do. You just got to think a little creative. What else is out there? Any other ideas out there? It's 3:01. I know people probably need to go if they need to go. Good stuff.
Any other just ideas y'all would want to share or questions? I totally respect when people need, you know, have a drop. So
I do have a question,
Uh-huh.
Darcy and Cindy, if you're willing to hang just for a couple minutes. Darcy referenced earlier, you know, kind of the difference between my team being productive versus really doing that strategic brainstorming, creative thinking. How do we move things forward? You know, that has definitely been a challenge. I lead a couple of strategic priority teams, and I'm with Darcy. I so much miss being in that room together around the table, using our Post-it notes or our big paper boards or whatever. It just, I've really struggled with finding creative ways virtually to sort of replicate that brainstorming environment. So just wondered if anybody had any good suggestions for that.
We are happy to ask the group if anyone has. That's a hard one. We found a couple of tools that we use. There, I think Cindy's going to bring up some whiteboards, some tools like that. I would tell you that prep is critical on even those priority meetings. I have done full days on quarterly updates, but the prep work is essential. You cannot go and do a quarterly or an update if people haven't prepared. You can kind of get away with it and you're in the room. You cannot virtually because they will disengage very quickly. So I think the expectation to prepare, to send pre-reads, to ask everyone to do it is like critical, especially on the priorities. So I would just say that when you're having a meeting, getting an agenda out, making sure people engage with issues, being very clear on pre-reads, being very clear on decisions that need to be made that meeting. In fact, we should share, if Cindy's got a killer agenda for that, that would be great, that we'll share with you. So I think the prep work, being clear on decisions, being clear on pre-read is what will make the difference between virtual and in person. That's
So let me show you a couple things because I'm always teaching. So I had to adapt really quickly to how to do this. And this, well, it's upside down, but I'll leave it upside down so you won't be able to see what I'm working on with the client. But we use this whiteboard all the time. I mean, write on it. If I'm teaching, I sit it in my lap and I draw. I've got this huge thing of Post-it notes that I'm constantly drawing on to show people what we're talking about. This, and we can include it. This is called an InSwan, and I don't have it hooked up right now, or I would do it. This is a desk camera that hooks right into the dongle on my computer. And so this actually films what I'm writing while I'm writing it, maybe $100, works phenom, pops right up on the screen. And if you go in Zoom, you can actually use the whiteboard in Zoom to type on, write on. That's a good way. Another, I don't have that set up either today, but you can take, all of us have old computers. You can either take your iPhone, I'm sure it works with whatever that other phone is. Sorry, I'm an iPhone gal. And set up, I have a stand for it, and I can set up my iPhone and show the screen, the whiteboard that I'm working on, and, to put it up in an office. Like today, the meeting I started out with, we had a couple of computers and a phone all showing different angles of the room so that everybody could socially distance. And that worked great because we could still use the screen as I was teaching and be able to toggle back and forth using like my whiteboard to show a point, or my desk cam. I just didn't plug everything back in today.
Oh, the other thing, if people haven't heard of the owl, have you heard of the owl? The owl, where it follows people and you can see people. It's about $1,000. It's a good, if you have to do virtual meetings, it will show you who's in the meeting. One of my clients got that. That's been great. And I feel like there was a technology called Vibe. That was the electronic board that connected to your computer that automatically showed it. I put it on there. I thought it was called Vibe.
Yeah, they're having trouble with some of those working.
Yeah.
It's like the old-fashioned whiteboard that you could print off. They're trying to work with some that'll connect to your computer, and they're struggling with it. But I recommend the OWL to everybody. I mean, it's OWL.
Oh,
in the middle.
OW. I think I spelled it right. Oh,
yeah, it sits in the middle of the room. You don't even watch it. It's not actually do to where it's distracting. There's a lid on the top, and it's moving around catching everybody. And so it goes to whoever's talking. And so it would be just like we're here. And if we were all in a room and I was remote, it would still look just like y'all are, because it's catching whoever's talking at the moment. It's a great investment. I have multiple companies using them.
Me too.
Yeah, and you can, pull in people from a whole bunch of different places and put it in the room for those of you who are present in the room.
And I'll just make a shout out to my retreat center downtown, Boost. If you haven't been down there, Boost downtown, they have killer space. They just held a workshop for us, and everyone had their space. They had whiteboards. They felt safe. But I'm still going to be a proponent of when you can meet in person at least a couple of times a year. Boost downtown. I don't know if she's going to make it. I'm pulling for her. So there's not a lot of people.
Places are tough.
Having workshops. But, I think still getting together, maybe not as frequent, but safely, I
work with the Hamilton County Department of Health, and we're still doing training together. So if the health department can do it, these are the people who are frontline doing the work of they're giving the COVID shots, and they're the ones calling you with the tracing. And we just, everybody keeps their mask on and socially distances and has a table. And I keep saying, everybody, if the health department can do it, we can too. It's good for people to see one another.
I'm going to share this agenda, but I just wanted to bring it up so you could visibly see it. One of the things I would encourage you, can you see it? I know I'll say it to you. But one of the things, Noelle, and Cindy will do another one on this. Actually, our 23rd, we'll go deeper into agendas and roles. But I wouldn't say just because you're leading the meeting that you should own the agenda every time. Rotate owning the agenda. Rotate someone taking notes. Rotate someone leading the meeting. Make sure everybody has a chance to put items on here. We'll spend a little bit more time on that, but the more people you engage in the meeting, the more likely they are to show up ready to go. If they think Noelle's going to take care of everything, then I promise you the level of engagement will be lower. But we'll send this, and I think we're going to spend a lot more time on just meeting effectiveness next time. Because I think that's a huge one. Virtual meetings can be effective, but they got to be planned. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.